A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, when Christ came into the world, he said, "Sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but a body you prepared for me. In holocausts and sin offerings you took no delight." Then I said, "As is written of me in the scroll, behold, I come to do your will, O God." First he says, sacrifices and offerings, holocausts and sin offerings, you neither desired nor delighted in. These are offered according to the law. Then he says, "Behold, I come to do your will." He takes away the first to establish the second. By this will, we have been consecrated through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's the eve of Christmas, and you can almost taste it. Actually, you can literally taste it if you go to our rec room and have a little sampling of the diabetic coma waiting to happen on our table. And you can gather around the bocce ball warmth and recall the wonderful ringing in your ears and that beautiful or really angelic singing of Christmas carols from the other night. And you can know at that moment that, as the song says, "In the air there's a feeling of Christmas." So with this feeling of Christmas, what exactly does this reading have to say to us? I mean, the first reading in the gospel from this Sunday about Bethlehem and the visitation, that's Christmassy enough, right? But what's all this talk about sacrifices and sin offerings? I mean, what in the world does that have to do with Christmas? Well, actually, it brings to mind some Christmas memories. Sacrifices and offerings, holocaust and sin offerings, you neither desired nor delighted in. It reminds me of at the age of 4 when I sacrificed the bull with, no, I'm kidding. But no, so it reminds me of a great many Christmas carols that we sing both in English and in Spanish, calling people to come to Jesus with their gifts. So we have the little drummer boy who's going to play for the child Jesus, or all sorts of people who are bringing whatever they can, those offerings to Christ. It also reminds me of New Year's Eve last year, when I was speaking with a friend of mine from high school and her fiancé about their upcoming wedding. And they told me about their plan to accept no wedding gifts. And their parents, well, more specifically their mothers, were outraged because they were defying all tradition. And in some ways, I can sympathize, because it's our human tendency on great occasions to offer great gifts. And so on this great occasion of the birth of Christ, our tendency is to offer, well, great gifts. But the issue is that Jesus seems to respond much like my friend and fiancé. Sacrifices and offerings, holocaust and sin offerings, you neither desired nor delighted in. So if we can't bring these things, what can we bring to the child Jesus? Well, the scriptures are full of all sorts of clues. Already here we hear, "Behold, I come to do your will." So as the first book of Samuel would say, obedience is better than sacrifice. So obedience is an alternative. Or we have in Hosea, quoted by Jesus, "I desire mercy," or in other translations, love, not sacrifice, and knowledge of God rather than holocaust. So mercy, love, knowledge of God. We have from Isaiah the famous passage about the fasting that God really seeks. "This is the fast I choose, releasing those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of the yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking off every yoke." The psalmist also tells us that what we are to offer God is a sacrifice of thanksgiving or praise. So all these are alternatives, but I think they're all condensed in one image from the psalmist, who says, "For in sacrifice you take no delight. Burnt offering from me you would refuse. My sacrifice, a contrite spirit, a humbled, contrite heart, you will not spurn." And it's that image of the heart that I think really encompasses all of these. That the gift that Jesus asks of us this Christmas, the infant Jesus, is the gift of our hearts. And in return, he offers his own heart back. Sort of like Catherine of Siena's mystical exchange of hearts. But it shouldn't surprise us, because already the prophet Ezekiel says, I will give you a new heart and place a new spirit within you. Obviously, this is God speaking through Ezekiel. Taking from your bodies your stony hearts and giving you natural hearts. I will put my spirit within you. So what exactly does it mean then to have the heart of Jesus within us, if not to have the Spirit of God within us? Certainly we hear about the gifts of the Holy Spirit as overflowing from the Holy Spirit dwelling within. But altogether we've heard the image of being the temples of the Holy Spirit so much that I think we've become numb to it. And I don't think we really dwell in how incredible, how marvelous it is. At least I tend not to. But to think that the all-powerful King of the cosmos dwells inside here, that he's with me in everything I do, day in, day out, shares my struggles, my joys, my anxieties, as one who also shared in human life. Wow, that's really something else. What a God we have. And what he asks in return is the gift of our hearts. Now, what does that mean, though? I mean, that's nice, pious language. Oh, I gave Jesus my heart. But what does that actually mean? Well, I don't know. In some ways, I do. But I only know insofar as I know my own heart. And there's much left there to discover. And I certainly can't begin to tell you what it means for you, because you have to know your own heart. I can tell you that when I first started following the Lord, giving him my heart meant leaving behind those sins that had kept me from him for so many years. And as I knew him more and more, it meant spending more time with Jesus. That was the gift of my heart. And then at one point, I came to that realization that the ultimate gift of my heart would be to join Dominican life, and that was it. That was the fullness of my heart being given. Of course, I was naively wrong. We continue to give ourselves more and more, a little piece more every year. As a novice, I realized I had to come to God, not with those parts of me that were good and perfect, but with the wholeness of my being, with the imperfect parts which he alone could perfect. And in this year, the gift I bring him is a discovery of the need to share my feelings with him, my yearning for intimacy, my gladness, but also my sadness and loneliness. To share with him my struggles with working with the poor, or preaching, or a mission of study, and bring all of that to the Lord. Now, it still leaves a question. Why make it all gradual? Why can't it just be once for all? I mean, certainly, God could have made us that way, right? I mean, he's omnipotent. Why not allow us to give the fullness of the gift of our heart all at once, rather than give little pieces each year? Well, the only thing I can say is it seems God delights in this being gradual. He delights in the struggle because it is precisely in the struggle that we show our love for God. And Jesus, the infant Jesus, delights in the fact that each year there's a new gift, a new part of our hearts that we've discovered, and that we can give him in the hopes of receiving a piece of him back. And so it is with joy that I join all those shepherds that our carols call, all those people bringing their gifts and drums and whatever it might be, and I myself process to Bethlehem. And as I do so, a certain song rings through my mind. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give